And good evening, sports fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tonight we will be taking our usual broad look across the DMV sports landscape. We're actually going to start out in basketball where things can't really get more depressing, but, we're going to keep looking for some positives and some upside on the season that has been for the Washington Wizards. We're also going to take a look at hockey. The Caps, much more positive, many more items to be enthusiastic on the hockey rink versus the hardwood. We then, of course, have to flip over to football, where it has not been a great several days for the Commanders, but they get a little bit of much-needed rest, which is always useful. And the Ravens have a major, huge divisional matchup coming up tomorrow. We also will take a look at the bowl game status of our DMV football teams. It's not bleak. We have some hope. Plus, some of our secondary schools are definitely going to bowl games, so that is something to be excited for. We're going to talk about all of that while enjoying a very tasty, sweet option that you can have with one course of your Thanksgiving meal. We've got all of that and more coming up on Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And once again, good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and who, for the past 10 and a half years and counting, has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, media personnel, and coaches to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. If you have not done so already, please follow us on all social media platforms, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, all of the above, at IE Sports Radio. You can listen to us on all of these platforms, whether you're listening live or later on in the week, whichever one works for you. All views are appreciated, but we've got a whole bunch of different options: Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, whole bunch of different options for you to listen to. And of course, you have to go over and check out the IE Sports Radio website. There you will find a whole bunch of information about the network. You'll find our daily show schedules. You'll find our show pages, like this one right here, for yours truly, which give you a little bit of background of the show and the voice behind the show. You can also find our merchandise at the link below. We've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've got shirts, all different kinds of things. So definitely check that out. We also have the blog there, which you can find at iesportsradio.com/blog or at iesportsradioblog.wordpress.com. You can find both of those there. And you can also find our Fan of the Month, the IE Sports Radio Hall of Fame, etc., all of the above. You can also follow yours truly on X, Instagram, and TikTok at letswine_IESR, especially if you are into DMV sports. I am always on there trying to get as much DMV sports out there as I can. But of course, none of this would also be possible without our sponsors. And without further ado, let's hear a little bit more about them right now.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, shout out to our sponsors. We're going to flip the order just to change things up a little bit this week. Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. The perfect touch to your fancy party, wedding invitations, baby shower invitations, birthday party invitations. Anything you need, you're looking at, you're thinking, I need this one last little touch. What could that touch be? Well, it certainly could be a custom wax seal on your invitations or on other, items that you could have at the event. So do check her out on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax seals. You can also order her product direct from our website, iesportsradio.com/seal the deal wax seals. And of course, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Really awesome handcrafted jerky. They have flavors ranging from classic barbecue, some of the really simple, solid flavors, all the way up to volcanic jalapeno, Carolina Reaper, ghost pepper, some of the spicy ones for those of you that like a little bit or a lot of bit of a kick. So do check them out on Instagram at Planet Jerky, or head over to planetjerky.net to order yours. I will forgive you clicking away from the broadcast to go get some premium brisket beef jerky. It is really jerky that's on a whole other planet. It's not expensive either. I mean, for jerky, you go to the grocery store, you're spending $10 on jerky. You spend $10 on the real deal stuff from these guys. It works either way, and it's a great snack for football, basketball, baseball, whatever your sporting taste is. We've got a lot of sports to get to tonight, as per usual, but of course, we must start with our beverage for the evening now. Reminder, for those of you who missed last week's show, we are doing Thanksgiving month. We are covering your full day of Thanksgiving, different wines that you could be pairing with different parts of the day. But the twist this year versus years past is that we're doing it from a sweet tooth perspective. So last week, we had a sweet sparkling wine. This week, we are going to go to the next course. Now, I will remind everybody of the 3 factors that go into choosing these wines or whatever wines you decide to choose. Things to think about. How many courses are you going to have? This also kind of correlates to how many people you're going to have. Just to note quantity, volume, things like that. The timing of the courses, if you're having your courses earlier in the day, you might not necessarily go with something, with a higher alcohol content, for example. Maybe you go for a little bit lighter wine. Or if you're having your meal later in the evening, maybe you can go with a little bit more of a traditional wine selection. And of course, your own wine style preferences, whether you have a sweet tooth, a dry tooth, you like a little bit of everything, you don't like wine at all, whatever your wine preferences might be, all of these things should be taken into account. Now, last week we did kind of the kick off the party, kick off the day pick, which was the sweet sparkling wine, kind of little bubbly to get the day started. Now we are covering the first course or the appetizer. Now, this is going to depend on, again, going back to your courses. Some people might not do an appetizer course, and that's okay. It's all going to be based on how you structure your day. My Thanksgiving Day does usually consist of an appetizer / first course, a little bit kind of lighter foods, hand foods, cheeses, crackers, like some like veggies, maybe a small dish, some soup, things like that. So this is a lighter meal. This is a lighter course. You're not getting full off of this one. So your wine shouldn't have a ton of pop, shouldn't have a ton of oomph, probably shouldn't have a ton of alcohol. So that's why I would definitely recommend, if you're going the sweet tooth route, a Moscato. Why Moscato? Well, first of all, Moscato's tasty, and Moscato could also easily work for other parts of the meal as well, just like a sweet sparkling wine could work with other parts of the meal. Some of these are going to be versatile, but Moscatos, as long as you pick the right one, because some of them are getting a little bit ridiculous with the alcohol, I've noticed. I saw a Moscato on the shelf the other day when I was shopping that was 16% alcohol, which if you want to get messed up, you by all means go for that one. But that's not what we're looking at on this one. We're looking for more of a traditional Moscato with lighter alcohol, maybe a little bit of bubbles in there for some nice variety, some nice change up, and something that's not too heavy on the fruit flavor. Some of the fruit flavored ones might not pair up well with your food, so you want something that's a little bit lighter on the flavor. In general, that's a universal rule for Thanksgiving because you've got lots of different foods. So for our choice this week, I didn't type out the name because it's a little bit of a longer name, but this is an Italian Moscato, Marchese dell'Elsa. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite wines. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've had it on the show, admittedly over the course of 4.5 years. It is a Moscato di Asti, which simply means that it is a Moscato from the Asti region in Italy. And I'm glad I didn't break this up too much because you can see the Asti region is a DOCG. That's the highest designation an Italian wine region can receive. And it's the highest designation an Italian wine can receive. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean this is super fancy, hand-picked by 100-year-old farmers? They only make 50 bottles of it? No, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means that it's past the standard for a good quality Italian wine. That's all that means, which means it's undergone testing, it's been sampled by wine experts. This is a good bottle of wine if you see that DOCG label on there, and it's usually over the seal so that your quality is contained. Now, this wine, being a Moscato di Asti, is very light. Moscato di Asti usually has the least alcohol of any of the Moscatos. This is 5.5%. Perfect. Exactly what we're looking for. Not super heavy, not something that's going to mess up you're feeling your rhythm for the day. We're getting some comments in here. We got Marcus Los, great, the host of our Gloves Off Boxing podcast. He always does a great job, and he's been drinking more wine lately. Salute to you, sir. Just remember what I always say, please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. We also have Ralph Calise, the host of the Yinzer Report, our Pittsburgh show, which you will want to stick around to the second half, sir, because we will be talking about a certain Pittsburgh team. I think you know who that is. But good evening to you, gentlemen, and good evening to everybody listening at home. Really glad to have you all here. It's always fun to have people jumping in the chat. But anyways, back to our Moscato. Oh, yeah, duh, hello. We got to taste the wine, guys, right? That's the next part. So yeah, Moscato, I like Moscato. I have never been shy about my having a sweet tooth. Not that I don't appreciate dry wines, heavier wines, heartier wines, things like that. But give me a Moscato any day of the week. There's not really much complexity in a Moscato. You're not looking for body. You're not looking for incredible aromas, although this one does smell very lovely. Apple, pear, peach flavors, things like that. You can see in there a little bit of bubble. There's a little bit of effervescence in this one. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But it all comes down to the taste, and I can tell you exactly how this one's going to taste. It's got a nice sweetness to it, a little bit of bubbles, that apple flavor really coming through, apple, peach, definitely a little bit of peach in there. But yeah, it's sweet, it's light, it's enjoyable. This is, in the beer world, they describe certain beers as crushable, right? Light beers that are like, your Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light, things like that. Your light lagers, your light ales, beers that don't have a ton of oomph to them, don't have a ton of complexity. You can just put it back and quote unquote crush it. Moscato's basically that of the wine world. It's super crushable. You can drink a couple glasses of that, feel fine. It's only 5.5%. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to taste good. It's not going to overpower your food, but it will provide you with a nice little flavor complement to your food with the light stone fruit flavor. So, Moscato, great choice. If you do have an appetizer or first course round, it's also a decent choice to kick off your day, your pre-meal during your prep time. It's a very good one because, again, not high in alcohol. So if you're having a glass while you're cooking, it's not going to impair your ability to cook. And it's also would qualify for your after dinner drink, your dessert drink as well, especially the flavored ones, which we are going to get to in 2 weeks. 2 weeks we're going to get to after the main course. Of course, next week has to be the main course because it's the week right before Thanksgiving. So, Moscato, great for the first course. Now let's get into some sports. I'm going to need to pour my glass for this one because we're starting. I made an executive decision, and I regret that executive decision to flip the script because I had been doing football to start my first part of the show. And, then it's jumping to basketball and hockey. But we're gonna jump to basketball first, and we're gonna be depressed to start this show, guys. The Washington Wizards, who will now properly earn the nickname the Washington Lizards because they're taking all of those L's, have now lost 7 games in a row. The team has zero cohesion. They are now 2-9 overall, which would be the worst record in the league if there weren't a couple teams that have played a few more games, Philadelphia and Toronto, both a little bit worse, but they're right up there. And, it's funny because the rookies that we keep talking about and the young players, Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington, Kaishan George, they all continue to play decent basketball. And Alex Sarr is coming off of the best game of his career against Atlanta last night. 20 points. I think he shot like 70% from the field. 4 blocks, 3 steals, 7 rebounds. Really good game from him. But there are 2 things messing up this rhythm. None of the veterans are getting the job done consistently. Some of them are getting the job done some games, others are getting it done the other games, but this team does not have a star. They do not have anybody who I would grade higher than, say, a B- on the scale. So in order for this team to play winning basketball, everybody has to be on their A game. And even if two guys are off, which last night, for example, Jonas Valanciunas didn't have a great game off the bench, and Kyle Kuzma played an awful game. Yes, he scored 29 points, but it took 28 shots. Those two combined, boom, losing basketball. Everybody needs to be on their A game for them to win, and that's simply not happening. Player of the week is nobody. Nobody gets to be player of the week because I don't think a team deserves to have a player of the week if they've lost 7 games in a row. Nobody gets that award, even if somebody's playing decent. Bub Carrington is playing okay basketball. Bilal Coulibaly's playing good basketball. Kaishan George is playing good basketball. The team has lost 7 in a row. There's no player of the week. I'm establishing that. When they finally win a game again, I will nominate a player of the week. But until then, nobody player of the week. No. But I did get to thinking last night about looking forward. Now, this is a couple months ahead, but looking forward to the trade deadline. Now, I do expect this team to participate in the trade deadline. In what way? No, they do not have players that are abundantly valuable that they'll be able to trade and get multiple first-round picks for, right? Jordan Poole, maybe. I don't know if anybody's going to take on that contract. Kyle Kuzma, playing terrible basketball and has been hurt for part of the year, so you're not going to get value for him. Valanciunas, not really. If Malcolm Brogdon, who's supposedly coming back from injury tomorrow night against the Pistons, if he plays well, you might get a little bit of value out of him. He's got an expiring contract. Somebody would probably be willing to eat that. But overall, this isn't going to be a team that's accumulating a lot of picks. What they are going to probably do is they are willing to take on dead salary from teams and get their picks that way and send guys out like Brogdon, like probably maybe guys like Marvin Bagley and Rashawn Holmes who aren't really playing. It's salary dumps for other teams who are tanking, who are above the luxury tax. The main team that comes to mind in this scenario is actually the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a huge tax bill, and even if they could trim $5, $7, $8 million off of their payroll, that's going to save their tax bill quite a lot. So I could see them working out some deal involving Chris Middleton, probably would be the big target, or Brook Lopez, the center. But ultimately, I do think one of these moves is going to involve Kyle Kuzma, whatever they do, because he's not working on this team. I don't think anybody is going to really take him on with the intention of turning him into one of their key players. But as a swap in a salary dump situation, his salary is the second highest on the team. And reminder, in the NBA, you have to at least somewhat match the salaries for the deal to be approved. So, if they were to trade for Chris Middleton, for example, who has a $31 million salary, Kyle Kuzma's $23 million salary makes sense as part of that deal. Now, like I said, I don't think they're going to really get a ton of draft capital, or at least a ton of quality draft capital. They might keep racking up second-round picks like they've been doing for a couple of years. But whatever the move is, I think Kuzma has to be gone. Get him out of there. Clear some minutes up for these young guys to keep getting playing time. Move Kaishan George into the starting lineup, or, work out something to where George, obviously, Sarr's going to get his minutes because they're only using him and Valanciunas at center right now. So Sarr's going to get his. But a rotation where eliminate Sarr. Kaishan George, Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly, that trio is getting a good chunk of minutes, varying between the 2, 3, and 4 spots. Plus, obviously, Jordan Poole's going to get his minutes, and whatever other veterans the team kind of... Oh, and Corey Kispert, obviously, is going to get his minutes as well. We are going to take our first break of the evening. When we come back, we are going to get into a little bit more chipper news. Do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, this is Jen B, host of the Show of the Land on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. If you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in live to the Show of the Land on Tuesdays, where we will cover the Cleveland Browns, Cavs, Guardians, and Monsters. We will also talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, Crew, Fury, and of course, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll also cover other colleges in the area like Akron, Kent State, Cleveland State, Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, Youngstown State, among others. So like I said, if you love Cleveland and Columbus sports like I do, be sure to tune in Tuesdays to the Show of the Land with Jen B on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Write About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's keep talking about some more sports, guys. So let's jump on to some more positive topics. How about that? Let's go to the Caps, who only played 2 games since we last talked. We did manage to capture a game last Saturday, so that makes sense. I think they have a game coming up tomorrow. So 3 games, 8 days. You know, they had played a bunch of games back-to-back there, so I'm glad that they got a little bit of extra rest this week. But 1-0-1 on the week to get to 11-4-1 on the season, still very good. Overtime loss to Toronto earlier in the week. Apparently the team had a chance to put it away with an empty net goal that they missed in that one while they were up 3-2, and then Toronto managed to come back and score the game-tying goal and then the game-winning goal in overtime. So kind of a rough loss there, but hey, it's hockey. They still get the point. So I'll take that point any day of the week. And then they beat the Avalanche last night in decisive fashion. And so yeah, 1-0-1 on the week, and player who scored 2 goals in that game, and gets player of the week nod, second time this year, Connor McMichael. Dude is on fire. He is now top 5 in the NHL in goals with 12. And a reminder, the Caps are among the lower teams in terms of games played. A lot of teams have played more than them, or at least equal to. So, I mean, he is on an incredible pace, leading the team in goals, really kind of earning his way. I think he's on the second line now, really kind of earning his spot there for the Caps to be another great goal-scoring option behind some of the other guys like Ovechkin and Tom Wilson. But yeah, great play from McMichael. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been playing great. Dylan Strome, obviously. I think Dylan Strome's almost to 20 assists now. So yeah, whole team is playing great. Rasmus Sandin's been getting into the action. He had been kind of quiet. They also have some of their defenders who had been hurt. Jacob Kykren and Matt Roy are now back and playing regular minutes, so that's great news. Kykren and Roy are probably going to be the two, with John Carlson getting up there in age a little bit. Those are probably going to be the 2 main guys, along with Sandin and probably Martin Favre. That's going to be your main defensive group for probably the next 3 to 4 years. I don't know, because Carlson's got 1 year left on his contract after this year, so they might move on from him. Excuse me. Don't know if they would. I think they would let him make that decision. But yeah, Kykren and Roy definitely going to be two of the main guys for this team, at least for a little while. Ovechkin record watch, no goals this week in 2 games. Not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. You can go 2 games without scoring a goal, OV. It's fine. Still sitting there at 863. Still needs 32 to pass. And they have 66 games. So 32 goals, 66 games. Need to start getting onto the every other rhythm there in order to make that happen. Other news for the Caps, which I'm sorry I didn't make a note. Lars Eller, they made a trade to bring back Lars Eller. Those of you Caps fans that go back a few years, Eller was the third-line center on that championship team. They moved him a couple years ago because his contract was expiring. He went to Pittsburgh, and now he is back. One of the concerns from this team had been the play of their third-line center, which was Hendrik Lapierre. I believe he has now been sent back down or loaned out to AAA. They either did that or they relegated Sonny Milano. I can't remember, excuse me, which of the 2 moves they did. But either way, Eller's back. He played last night. He was that third-line center. Nick Dowd with the fourth-line center. Strom and Dubois are 1 and 2. So it was great to see him back. And I think he drew a penalty that led to one of the goals last night. So Eller is back, everybody, and hopefully he can lock down that third center spot for us and make the team that much better moving forward. Before we jump into football, there is a little bit of, there's been a couple of Orioles notes to pop up really over the last couple of days that I wanted to jump on really quick. Actually, before we jump into that, a couple more people jumping in the chat. Patty Bax, the host of our Buffalo show, she jumps in. Have a great show. Thank you very much for jumping in, Patty. And then our NorCal show jumping in as well. I believe that is Dre. So thank you for jumping in, everybody. Thank you again to everybody who is listening live at home. It really does mean a lot. But back to those pesky Orioles who even in the offseason can't seem to get away from my attention. Pretty significant change. They're making more modifications to the left field wall. As you recall, 3 years ago in the offseason, the team moved the left field wall, which was a complaint for pitchers because, you know, anything could go out of the left field wall in Camden Yards. They moved it back and made it higher, which made it go from one of the easiest left fields to hit home runs to one of the hardest left fields to hit home runs. And if you want proof of that, go look at Ryan Mountcastle's year-by-year home run totals. A right-handed power hitter, and look at the change after the left field wall happened, and there's your statistical evidence of the impact it has made. Now, what looks like they're doing is they're making a second wall that is going to be shorter and slightly closer than the current wall, but not quite up to where the original wall was. So it looks like they're finding some form of middle ground that is going to help out with some of those right-handed power hitters getting a few more home runs in there. Will it help the team win games? Tough to say. I mean, obviously, playing in Camden Yards for 81 games a season, our players are the ones that are most impacted, but it was clear that the changes were too extreme, and they had to find a medium to kind of meet in the middle. So that part of it kind of makes sense. Also, on the rumor mill for the Orioles, they've been linked to free agent Japanese pitcher Roki Sasaki. Now, Sasaki is younger than some of the guys that came over last year, Yoshibu Yamamoto, and I apologize, I cannot remember the name of the guy who signed with Chicago, who had a very good season this year. But Sasaki's a lot younger because he made it onto the Japanese national circuit. A lot younger. Fireball pitcher, dynamic fastball, 2 other good pitches in his repertoire. Looks like a good starting option for the team. Now, players from Japan, historically, not really attracted, at least the big name guys, not really attracted to the middle size to smaller markets like Baltimore. You see a lot of them go to New York or Boston or LA, places like that, San Francisco. But it does seem like the Orioles are getting a lot of traction. And if they can turn around and make this move and somehow manage to get Sasaki, which will probably cost them most of, if not the entirety of their international signing bonus pool this season, that would actually be a very interesting move and open up a lot of intriguing possibilities for this rotation, adding Sasaki in, especially since I don't think that'll necessarily dampen their pursuit for free agent starting pitching, given the likelihood that Corbin Burns is going to sign elsewhere. So that's a really intriguing development, especially depending on what they sign Sasaki for. If they can get Sasaki and another good starter for the same price that they would have paid Corbin Burns, I mean, that's a pretty good change, and it would allow them good flexibility, good protection from injuries. It might even let them experiment with a couple of their guys who are starters going to the bullpen. A guy who's been rumored to be, an option to move to the pen. I don't know if it's founded within the organization itself, but Grayson Rodriguez, starting pitcher, who's a really good starter, don't get me wrong, but he's had injury issues the last 3 seasons. And you got to wonder, as a guy who has a 2 dominant pitches and a reasonable third pitch, but if his 2-pitch mark, especially with his high 90s fastball, doesn't play up a little bit in shorter bullpen stints where he can, kind of lean into it a little bit more. So, like I said, the addition of Sasaki really opens up some intriguing possibilities if it were to happen. Now, I still think it's a long shot because, like I said, realistically, these types of players do not sign with the Orioles very often, but it seems to be getting some momentum, and the team does seem a lot more willing now to make some of these bigger moves with new ownership. So, hey, you never know. It's got a chance. That's going to do it for this part of our show. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to dive heavy into football. So do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Calise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold, have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We have entered the final part of our show. I have poured my second glass of this very tasty Moscato. Once again, that's Marchese della Elsa Moscato d'Asti out of Italy. But of course, this is my prime time to remind everybody of the show's main message, which is please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. One of my favorite social media posts regarding this topic is that you can afford an Uber or a taxi before you can afford a DUI. So please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. I will not be going anywhere after this, and if you've been drinking, neither should you. So if you're at home, please stay put. Or if you're out and about, watching the college football games or whatever other major sporting event might be going on tonight, whatever you're checking out, or, at a party with friends, whatever the reason may be, not judging anybody for drinking, just please do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. Let's talk football. So the Ravens have had a pseudo break. They actually have not played since we last talked, but the Commanders have actually played twice, and it has not been a great twice. Now, to jump off of this note by Dre, Jaden Daniels, lock for Rookie of the Year right now. Yes, I would have to agree with that statement. However, the Commanders as a whole, little bit of a drop here, and that's okay. But, the Commanders lose to the Steelers and Eagles. They lost to the Steelers by 1. They lost to the Eagles by 8. It drops them to 7-4. Look, the Steelers, both of these teams, the Steelers were 6-2 entering this game. The Eagles were 7-2. They didn't lose to the Giants and the Panthers, guys. They lost to two of probably the top 6 teams reasonably. I can say that comfortably without really having to think it out in my head very much. 2 of the top 6 to 7 teams in the NFL. And by the way, they lost to a third team, you could argue, in the Baltimore Ravens a few weeks back. So 3 of their 4 losses have come from 3 of the top 8 teams, let's say, in the NFL. The Commanders are probably one of them. If I had to rattle off the other 4 off the top of my head, I would say you got the Bills, you got the Chiefs, you've got the Lions, and then you could argue about who the other team might be. You could argue maybe the Vikings right now, maybe the Packers right now. There's a couple teams that you could argue there. But easily, you've got 3 of your losses against 3 of the top 8 teams in the NFL. So I'm not mad about it. A lot of people have been throwing fits on X, whatever. The team is still young, guys. The team is not perfect. They weren't going to go 15-2. They were going to lose a couple. And let's not forget, they have not had their bye yet. Team is banged up. The Eagles game was on a 4-day week following the Steelers game. That was just cruel and unusual punishment by the scheduling committee. This was going to be the chance to lag. Now, the key is going to be the team gets some extra rest now. After this one, they get a few extra days and then the regular week. And they have some more reasonable opponents, not top 7-8 teams in the league in their schedule over the next few weeks. Now it's the bounce back. How do they respond? Let's take a quick look at that schedule coming ahead of us. I know the Cowboys are one of the games for sure. At home against the Cowboys, home against the Titans, at the Saints. Those are their next 3 games, and that's around their Week 14 bye. So they get Cowboys and Titans at home, bye, and then at Saints. This team could easily be 9-5 or 10-4 by December 22nd. And, then they have it's a little bit tougher to end the season. They get the Eagles again, but at home. They get the Falcons at home, decent opponent. And then at the Cowboys, which divisional games always kind of 50-50. So kind of rough. But, look, the last 6 games, much better, especially than the previous 2 for sure. So not worried. Everybody's freaking out. Another great comment. Thank you guys for tuning in. We also got Larry B jumping in there. Thank you, sir, as well. But yeah, I'm not worried about the Commanders. They get this pseudo break, rest up, get a little bit healthier, figure out what's wrong with Jaden Daniels. He looked a little off on Thursday night. It happens. He's a rookie. I'm not going to kick him out of the league for having a couple of bad games, okay? If that was the rule, Caleb Williams would be gone. Drake May would be gone already. Bryce Young gone. Anthony Richardson gone. Those last two might happen in a couple of years anyways. To be determined. We'll see. Ralph Calise. Yes, thank you. They could go 5-1. I don't think they're going to go 5-1. That's a little rich. But 4-2 to get to 11-6. Somebody tell me if you had the Commanders going 11-6 before this season. I can tell you, you can go back and look at the show recordings. I had them at 6-7 wins, okay? So if they go 5-1, a phenomenal 12-5 season. 4-2 gets them to 11-6. Are you kidding me? That's the 5 seed, I bet you, in the NFC. Maybe the 6 seed, because the NFC North's really weird this year. So maybe the 6 seed. You know, you get a road playoff game against the 49ers probably. That would suck. Or the Falcons. That would be manageable. Just saying. But yeah, no. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Ralph. I am not sure. And yes, total surprise, right? Thank you. They've been a total surprise. Let's not crucify them over 2 one-possession losses to 2 of the top teams in the league. But speaking of one of those teams, Ralph Calise, you're going to want to be in on this. This is a big one for the Ravens. They get their nice little mini break at the Steelers tomorrow. How this isn't I don't think this is a primetime game. How this isn't a primetime game is beyond me. I don't think it is. Let's see. I think it's just a 1 o'clock game, right? Yeah, it's a 1 o'clock game. Like I said, how it's not a primetime game is beyond me. But this is a big one for the Ravens. The Ravens, pretty nice little win streak here. They've won, let's see, what is that? Since starting the season 0-2, they've won 7 out of 8, with their one being, I'm not going to lie, and this is no offense to Jen B., our Cleveland sports show host, a fluke game against a Jameis Winston-led Cleveland Browns teams. Let's just call that one what it is. But this is a big matchup. These games are always tough. They're always tight. The Steelers, like I said last week when they were going to play the Commanders, a good team playing great football. The Ravens are also a good team that has been playing great football. It's going to be a clash of titans. Winner takes sole possession of the AFC North and gets a huge advantage. This is also, interestingly enough, I believe the first divisional game for the Steelers, which is going to make for a very interesting end of the season for them. But it would be great for them to start off 1-0. This is at the Steelers. That's going to make it a little bit tougher. Not that it seems to matter in this rivalry. These guys play each other hard on each other's home fields. I can remember several years in a row where the Ravens won in Pittsburgh and then the Steelers came and won in Baltimore. So, tough game, 50-50 game by definition. We'll see how it goes. I hope the Ravens win. It's not the be-all, end-all if they lose, because they have home games against the Steelers and Browns still on their schedule. If they can take those two, that will get them in a great position for the division. Let's jump into some college football really quick before we wrap up. We have to talk bowl game watch. We did this a few weeks ago. All of our DMV teams were 4-3 at the time. It's been kind of rough since then. But got to see this. Yeah, best rivalry in football. Agree with you 100%, Ralph. And what makes it the best rivalry in football is that it's always close, competitive football games with some respect. The teams respect each other. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a little bit of bad blood this year because Patrick Queen is on the Steelers, and I know he's not super happy about not getting a good contract offer from the Ravens last year. So there's a little bit of bad blood this year, and there always is some. But at the end of the day, I mean, you listen to how a lot of these guys talk about the other team. I mean, Mike Tomlin, the other day when somebody compared Jaden Daniels to Lamar Jackson, he basically said, whoa, let's slow down. Lamar Jackson's a two-time MVP. Let's not go that far yet, guys. And, and I know when John Harbaugh talks about the Steelers, I know he talks with great respect as well. So I agree, Ralph. Best rivalry in football. We've got bowl game watch. Like I said, all of our DMV teams were 4-3 a few weeks ago. Hasn't been a great month for them. Let's start with our two Virginia teams. Virginia and Virginia Tech, both 5-5. Virginia, tough game today against Notre Dame. They did not even really play competitive football, not even going to lie to you. But both sit 5-5. Both need one win for a bowl game. Both have pretty tough opponents next week. I believe Virginia Tech has Duke, and Virginia has SMU, who could be college football playoff bound, which is really weird to say. But then they play each other in the final game of the season, which will be really interesting. If they both come into that game 5-6, one of them is going to go to a bowl game, which actually guaranteed one of them is going to go to a bowl game. So let's look at it that way. But hopefully you can hope one, if not both, manage to pull off an upset. Virginia actually pulled off an upset over Pitt last week, which I missed. I thought they had lost, but I went back and checked after the show, and they had won. So well done there by Virginia. I did not catch that. But both 5-5. Both need one game. Automatically, one of them's going to win at least one game. So we will have at least one of our Virginia teams in bowl game eligibility. Now, the other big DMV school is not in such a good position. They needed to beat Rutgers today. They didn't beat Oregon last week. I did not think they were going to beat Oregon. By the way, there's my Christmas tree. There you go. They did not beat Oregon. No surprise. They needed to beat Rutgers. Now, why did they need to beat Rutgers to get to 5-5? Because they have Iowa and Penn State as their two remaining opponents. Now, Iowa's not impossible. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. Iowa, very good team, but not impossible to beat. Penn State's Maryland's not beating Penn State. So this could be the end for Maryland this season. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I don't think they win both of these games. If I'm being honest, after the way they played against Rutgers today, I don't think they win either of these games. I think Maryland could go 4-8 this year, which would be really disappointing, especially with some of they have some pretty decent players on this team, but it's just not looking good, guys. Not looking good, but there is some positive. There are two other DMV schools that will be playing in bowl games. Navy and James Madison both have eclipsed the total. Navy 7-3, James Madison 8-2. Navy obviously has the big game. Go Navy, beat Army. That always makes this season a success. But both teams bowl eligible, both going to be well above the threshold, and I think both will be in bowl games in December, and that will be fun and exciting to watch, which means at minimum we will have 3 DMV teams to cheer on. You can cross your fingers for 4. It is not going to be 5. I can say that with incredible confidence. But at least 3 DMV teams to cheer on is going to be very exciting. That will do it for tonight's show. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who jumped in to the chat room. Marcus Los Great, Ralph Calise, Patty, Dre, T5, Larry B, all of you guys, thank you for jumping in the chat room. It was a great pleasure to be on with all of you and to be on with everybody who listened live at home and everybody who listens live later in the week on any of these options below. We appreciate all of you. We really do. Please, of course, reminder to follow us on all social media platforms, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I think I saw something the other day about this new platform, Blue Skies, that's starting to become a thing. So pretty soon, there might be another option to list there as well. Do check out our website, of course, iesportsradio.com, to find the show pages, the daily schedule, the merchandise, the blog, the Hall of Fame, the Fan of the Month, all of the above and more. And of course, shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Beef Brisket Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals. You guys rock. All of you listeners rock. And you know what will make you rock even more is if you please drink responsibly and you do not drink and drive. We will be back next week to continue our Thanksgiving month theme. We will be on to the main course. Really interesting one to discuss, especially from a sweet tooth option. How do you approach it? How do you pick the right wine for it? If you have a sweet tooth, we are going to discuss that in depth with a pretty darn good wine as well. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Mike Patt for Let's Wine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week. We'll see you next time, and go Ravens, beat the Steelers.